Now, the Palin Update with Kevin Scholla presents Liberty and Legacy. Here's Tamara Colbert.
It's Constitution Week. I found a brilliant quote from J. Kessner Khan. There must have been something so very right about Americanism, for in the days it was practiced, it brought us from 13 undeveloped colonies to the world's greatest ever nation and brought Americans to new heights of life, liberty, and well-being. If only you and I could have been there to experience that Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia, the most important moment in American history, the very creation of our nation. Well, this week, September 17th, is Constitution Day. I wish we spent every day in classrooms across America studying, thinking about, and discussing the Constitution. This is why September 17th is so important that we focus on it. Because if we get one day, at least we need to talk about it, read it, and discuss it with our kids. The fact that we don't emphasize the Constitution to our young people is exactly why we're struggling today. And I would venture to guess that a majority of our leaders at the federal level haven't picked one up to read in decades, if ever. I wonder how many of our leaders in Capitol Hill have walked to the National Archives to even look at it. As we begin a presidential election cycle with the second debate for the GOP coming up this week, the day before Constitution Day, we are discussing and debating ideas and solutions for our nation. Exactly in the same spirit that the Constitutional Convention had a passionate debate when those 56 men spent months hammering out the details of our future. How extraordinary. The convention began on May 25th, 1787, and by September 17th, 39 men had signed it. George Washington, who was president of the Constitution, got to be the first to sign that document, and then the rest of the representatives. But let's be clear, every single one of them understood to the fullest exactly what they were signing. Think about it. I imagine as they signed the Constitution, they thought about the men and women who sacrificed and died to get to that day. What is interesting is that before they signed it, in mid-June of 1787, they all realized that rather than amending the Articles of Confederation that had been created in 1781, they believed God was leading them to build an entirely new frame of government, one that would be able to have our nation expand through the centuries. Those topics that they discussed were centralized government versus states' rights, small state versus large state, free states versus slave states, debt, tax collection, trade, law and order, and relationships with foreign governments and treaties. All of those things had to be addressed in one single document that resulted in a model of cooperative statesmanship and creative compromise. We, the people of the United States of America, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. How amazing that paragraph, that opening paragraph to our Constitution. On December 7, 1787, Delaware became the first state to ratify the Constitution, and on June 21, 1788, New Hampshire became the ninth, making the Constitution the law of the land. Today, America is the only nation in the history of the world to be a nation under a single constitution for this amount of time. Just how brilliant were our founders? They were so brilliant they included an emergency button within the Constitution for the day when they knew our federal government would become too big and too strong, taking the people's liberties away. Folks, we're here right now. That little emergency button is called Article 5, and it was made for such a day as this. And I want to read it to you. The Congress, whenever 2/3 of both houses shall deem it necessary, shall propose amendments to this Constitution, or on the application of the legislatures of 2/3 of the several states, shall call a convention for proposing amendments, which in either case shall be valid to all intents and purposes as part of this Constitution when ratified by the legislatures of 3/4 of the several states, or by conventions in 3/4 thereof, as though one or the other mode of ratification may be proposed. On the last day of the Constitutional Convention, George Mason stood up and said, "Oh my goodness, what have we done?" He stopped everything. He said, "We've created a constitution for the people, but not allowed them an opportunity to stop the federal government legally when it becomes too large and begins to trample upon the liberty of the people." On that day, the rest of the delegates said, "You're right," and they unanimously voted Article 5 into the Constitution so that the people would have the authority, the divine duty, to stop the federal government when it became too much. We are there. There isn't one of you listening today who believes that America's best days are behind us. I don't. So what are we going to do about it? We're going to stand idly by while our federal officials recklessly abandon our principles and the rule of law? Heck no! We are going to join together to fight the growing tyranny and reclaim citizen-led self-governance. Oh, let's be clear, it's going to be hard. It's going to be really hard. Probably the hardest thing we've ever done as a people, because it is going to require one thing, and that will be for the majority of us to unite and work together to achieve this success. The beautiful thing is we can do it under Article 5, and I'm working on that now, thankfully. Go to conventionofstates.com to learn more. And thank you, Sarah Palin. Thank you, Bristol Palin and Mark Levin and Sean Hannity and Rush Limbaugh and everybody else for understanding this is the only way and supporting our efforts. On Wednesday is the second GOP debate, as I mentioned. And the question you need to be asking as you watch it is which candidate on that stage is going to respect and revere the Constitution, and who of them all has the capability to lead our entire nation in one voice back to the Constitution. We must use the Constitution to save the Constitution, and how brilliant, thank you, were America's founding fathers. What do you think? Do you think we can unify and do it? Tweet me at Tamara Colbert, hashtag Mama Grizzly Radio. I can't wait to hear from you. God bless you this week, and may God bless America. I'm Tamara Colbert for Mama Grizzly Radio.
Tamara Colbert in Texas. Tune in for more Liberty and Legacy next week. And to learn about Convention of States, head to conventionofstates.com. Now our weekly commentary, Steel Resolve. Once again with more on Defund Iran. Here's Sarah Steelman.
Thanks, Kevin. There's a lot of talk in Washington about how dangerous and bad the Iran deal is for America's safety. Not only are they building a nuclear bomb, but Iran is the biggest sponsor of terrorism in the world. Iran continues to call for the destruction of Israel and death to America. They hold American citizens as captive. And yet, this nuclear deal will allow hundreds of billions of dollars to flow back into Iran to fund terrorism and purchase weapons. As we all know, talk is pretty cheap in Washington. But as far as I can tell, that's all it is. It's been all talk and no action. This week, we launched Defund Iran, that puts the power into the hands of the American people to put the hurt on Iran, keep the money out of their hands, and keep us safe. Defund Iran gives citizens the ability to vote on ballot measures in their individual states, to defund Iran as well as other terrorist-sponsoring states. The people in America are wise, and they understand what's at stake. They won't be bought off to pay for their silence or inaction like many in Congress today. That's why 70% of people polled support this idea. In 2006, Missouri started the first tariff refund, and put in place divestment policies to make sure no tax dollars were invested in companies that did business with terrorist-sponsoring states. I knew then, as I know now, that no citizen wants their tax dollars helping terrorists. Subsequently, 29 states joined with us in this effort to cut off tax money to terrorists. Now we are faced with an agreement that includes a clause instructing the federal authorities to do anything within their power, anything, to stop states from enforcing their state's divestiture laws. 3 of us, Treasurer Josh Mandel from Ohio, Mark Waller from Colorado, and myself, joined together to form Defund Iran to tell the administration, Congress, and any other so-called federal authority, not with our money. Defund Iran will begin with 5 states, Missouri, Ohio, Colorado, Florida, and Arizona. We will not only continue to enforce present law, but strengthen sanctions against Iran. Our goal is to add at least 25 more states to our cause in the coming weeks. These ballot measures will be put to a vote of the people in November 2016 elections. Some say the states have no right to work in contradiction against the president's foreign policy. To them, I say the president sidestepped the U.S. Constitution by not submitting this agreement as a treaty to the United States Senate. The founders designed our Constitution for states to have a say in foreign policy through their elected representatives. Some say the European nations will invest in Iran, so what difference does it make? To them, I say that America stands up for what is right, on principle, no matter what. Helping fund terrorism with the people's money is absolutely wrong. Some will say this won't make a difference. To them, I say every dollar we stop makes a difference to the soldier who gets blown up by an IED financed by Iran. Not 1 penny of the people's money should go to any company that does business with Iran or any other state sponsor of terror. If you're interested in helping us or want to find out more, please go to defundiran.com or defundiran.vote. Sign up. Help us. It's your opportunity to fight back against this bad nuclear agreement with Iran. This is Sarah Steelman for Mama Grizzly Radio.
Tune in again next week for another segment of Steel Resolve right here on the Palin Update. The Palin Update, including Liberty and Legacy and Steel Resolve, is on demand and available for download. So just head to mamagrizzlyradio.com, pick the show you want to hear, and you can listen anywhere, anytime. Well, that'll just about do it for this edition of the Palin Update on Mama Grizzly Radio. Visit mamagrizzlyradio.com for continuing coverage of Governor Palin. Also, like Mama Grizzly Radio on Facebook, and follow along on Twitter at Mama Grizz Radio, at Kevin Scholla, at Tamara Colbert, at Sarah_Steelman, and at 3DSTS. And I'm doing some writing for Breitbart News. Go to Breitbart.com and search Kevin Scholla. I want to thank Sarah Steelman, Tamara Colbert, and everyone here at Mama Grizzly Radio. And thank you for listening today. A special thanks to our sponsor, 3D Security and Training Academy. Visit 3DSTA.com. The Palin Update is produced by Lena Anderson, the Andy L. Kramer, and Lori Ann Lewis. Please be sure to join us again next time for another edition of the Palin Update, right here on Mama Grizzly Radio. I'm Kevin Scholla. Have a pleasant day.